Hey, good morning. Hey, good morning.
Good morning. How's it going? Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Perfect.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep. Everything sounds great.
Good.
Got the office is quiet as a church mouse this morning. So that's working out. That'll work out great. We're in the process of moving everybody around. So there's like a whole section of the building here that doesn't have anybody in it. So it's kind of nice.
Oh, that is nice.
I had a conference room reserved, but somebody took it, which is kind of funny. That's sort of how we roll around here. I think sometimes people don't always check. So, but I found a whole wing of a building, so that works out well too. So
that really works out good.
Yep.
If you don't mind, I'm going to record this today so that I can send this out afterwards if you guys want to review or refresh or share the information with anybody that you know. But I'm going to say it again. I am super excited to launch a webinar series. So this came about because well, I kept getting a lot of questions about, okay, what some new marketing tactics, what really works? You know, how am I going to engage customers? How am I giving customers the information that they want these days? You know, COVID kind of changed the playing field a little bit, but there were things that were changing that, you know, we're all used to traditional marketing and how things have always been done. But as you know, social media came along, and then that's a beast in itself that's always evolving. And so really just wanted to be able to provide people some information about, okay, so what works today? You know, what do you need to be doing to engage your customers? How is the customer journey changing? And so that's really how this whole webinar series came about. And as I mentioned, every month we'll have kind of a new topic talking about different aspects of ways to engage customers and why customers want to engage with your company. And so I think I know most of you on the call, but I just wanted to give you a little overview of me and Elizabeth King Consulting. Elizabeth King Consulting is a really small marketing and public relations firm. And my business is intentionally small because I love to collaborate with industry leaders to really create the right marketing strategy for a business. And so I've been in public relations, I counted it up the other day, and it's almost 25 years. And that really kind of scared me because I thought, I just graduated the other day. I don't even know how this happened. But realized over the years, I've gotten a lot of experience. So I love marketing strategy, and I love kind of project management and writing. And there's so many things that I really love, but there's a lot of things that I don't know how to do, or I'm not an expert in. And so that's where being a solopreneur, depending on what my clients needs, I create the right team for them. So I bring in online review professionals, I bring in videographers, I bring in photographers, I bring in the right mix of whatever is going to help achieve that client's goals. And so that's a little bit about what my business is and how it all came about. And so I am going to share my screen and get into this presentation. Let's see if I can, and is it presenting yet? There we go. All right. So the first in our series is going to be what works and the importance of online reviews. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit about our agenda for today. I'm going to talk about marketing strategy versus tactics. We're going to talk about the role of online reviews in the customer journey, how soliciting reviews is part of a marketing strategy, tools to manage reviews and customer feedback, and then we'll open it up at the end for Q&A. So because I love marketing strategy, I would be remiss if I didn't take a few minutes to talk a little bit about how what we're talking about today with online reviews plays into the bigger marketing strategy for your company. So most times companies want to jump right into the tactics. It's sexy, it's fun. You know, you get to go create a logo and a website, and you get to go do marketing tactics and just, you know, throw it against the wall and see what works. Well, that's not really the most effective way to use your time and money. So with my clients, I really like to start with assessment. So really, what is your company identity? Why do you do what you do? You know, who are you? What are your values? Who are your ideal customers? Have you really dialed into who you need to be targeting and where do they get their information? So spending a little bit of time on understanding who you are and your key messages and who your customers are is very important. The next part of that is goal setting. You know, I talked a little bit about helping businesses achieve their goals. Well, you've got your business goals that you're trying to accomplish. But with marketing, you need to dial it down a little bit more into, you know, what are those drivers? What's going to help you achieve those business goals through marketing? And so, you know, the SMART goals come into place. You know, they're measurable, they're time bound, and it gives you kind of a smaller time frame to really focus your efforts and to see what works. You know, by having something measurable, you can see, oh, this tactic is really working for me versus, you know, I've spent time on this and nobody's interested. And now you can say, well, either it needs to be tweaked or let's just throw that out of the mix. That doesn't work for us. What we're going to talk today about with online reviews is really the tactics. You know, this is just a tactic and just a way to help part of your overall marketing strategy. And usually when you do a marketing strategy, there are a number of different things that come into play. It's not just one specific tactic. It's usually multiple tactics to achieve a goal. You've got your implementation, and then at the end, it's that evaluation. It's what works, what's not working for you, what needs to be tweaked. What I find with a lot of companies is that they jump into that planning stage and like I said, throwing tactics against the wall like spaghetti to see what sticks without really spending time on that assessment and that evaluation. And so all of those things really go into creating a full marketing strategy for your business. All right. Well, you all are here to learn more about online reviews. So I am going to introduce you to Kevin Kiernan. Kevin is a partner business manager for Podium. He's spent the majority of his career in marketing and branding and has led clients and agencies through the pivot from traditional advertising mediums like print and network events to web optimization and reputation management. So at this point, I am going to turn this over to Kevin. I'm going to stop sharing. And Kevin, I am thrilled that you could join us today to share your knowledge and expertise. And I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah, super pumped. Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm super excited. And I told Elizabeth, everybody yesterday, I'm one of those people that if I talk for the whole time, then I feel like I'm doing a bad job. So please ask questions. Whether if you can raise your hand in the Zoom, or you can just ask out loud, or you can chat it in, whatever you're most comfortable with. But love questions, love making sure that we're catering any sort of presentation that we have to you, so that you have an idea there. And I'll actually put this here. So I'm gonna start here. But I love Elizabeth's agenda here. And so I don't know if you saw that at the beginning, but just originally talking about the marketing strategy versus tactics, and then why reviews are important, and then soliciting reviews, and then just in tools in general. And obviously Podium is a tool to do that. So, but I'm not going to be super salesy here today. I told Elizabeth, I always like to focus on the why. So kind of going back to what she said, if you think about any sort of a marketing tactic at all, you have to go back to why am I doing this? Not throw it at the wall and see what sticks, but is this working, and why is it working, and how does it work? And so that's mostly what I'll focus on today. And I have a big slide deck here, but I told Elizabeth yesterday, she and I just like to bounce through places. We may not even get to the slide deck. We may just have a conversation here. So please, like I said, feel free to ask any questions, but go from there. And I guess, to start out, does anybody have any experience at all with reviews yet? Have you tried to get online reviews? Have you seen, what are the goods and the bads of reviews that you've experienced so far?
I've actually gotten several, but it's seems to be like pulling teeth. Even if people could tell you to your face, like this is the most life-changing thing ever, to actually get them to do a review. And then I'm always worried about the consequence of somebody that just gets mad. They don't do their part, but they want to get mad and sling mud. How to filter some of that stuff out.
Yeah, no, that's a challenge that a lot of people face. For sure, and a concern a lot of people have, right? What if I open the door to people saying bad things? And interestingly enough, I have an answer to that. So, and then I look like someone else was maybe going to say something or was nodding. Yep, you got your hand up there. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious if online reviews are even worth my time. If my firm will benefit from them at all. We're not retail, we're not a restaurant. We're a consulting firm. And so I know people say good things and we get a lot of referrals, kind of word of mouth, but right. We have also no online reviews. And I don't know whether it would benefit us to put the time into getting them.
Yeah. On that one, I always go back to what's the value of a new client. And if you were making, one of the things we discuss here, and I'll bring up this story in a second, but if you were making a decision, so if people are using it for food or for, whatever, like something, hey, where am I going to eat my pizza tonight? That seems like if you don't, if you don't get the best pizza in the world, the next day you could go get the best pizza in the world, right? But if you jump on with a consulting company and you don't know what you're getting into, that's far more scary, because number one, they're bringing in their money for their business that they started most likely, and then they've got to work with you for a long time. So they're definitely going to want to read reviews. So there's that value. There's always going to be the what other people are saying about me. And then the second part is there is an SEO value. So I don't know if you guys, how much you guys spend on that, but as Elizabeth mentioned, with a marketing strategy, there's always going to be an SEO value when you're talking about a local search, right? So if you're looking for local customers, getting reviews is always going to help you. In fact, so just a kind of a quick intro to Podium. So we have a review tool, we have some other things, but we're actually financially backed by Google. And one of the reasons they backed us is that reviews are huge for them, because they really, their biggest concern, and this also will answer a little bit of the first question too, is their biggest concern is that if people don't trust the search results when someone looks for a new product, service, restaurant, whatever that looks like, then they're going to quit using Google, right? And so what they want to do, and why they place such a high value on reviews, is that they want you as a customer to be able to tell people whether it's a good or a bad business. Along with that, interestingly enough, to answer the other thing about bad reviews too, is Google also tells us, hey, people actually buy from 4.6 to 4.9 star rated businesses more often than they buy from a 5-star. Simply because most people don't trust that the 5-star, or they think, oh, hey, you've got 9 5-star reviews. You sat around the Thanksgiving table and got your family to leave you a 5-star review. But then there's this other person down the street that's got 40 reviews and they're at a 4.6, and they've got 1 or 2 bad reviews, but they've also got 38 good reviews, right? And so they trust that more. And so there is some value to that, even to the point where a negative review here and there isn't the worst thing in the world. So there is a lot of value there. And the other thing that I'd never thought of before until I brought this up, because 88% of customers say they actually trust online reviews more than they trust their family and friends. So most of the time when someone refers, like if someone says, hey, this business is a great consulting business, you should check them out, they are most likely going to go read reviews, because a lot of times people, and I hadn't thought of this until I brought this up to my wife recently, but she said, my brother-in-law, everything he does is the best and greatest of everything, right? So a lot of times we have some member of our family that's always like, oh, you got to do this. This is so amazing. And then you go do it and you're like, it was all right. And so they actually, consumers actually trust those reviews because they're unbiased. They're not saying, hey, you should do what I'm doing. It's more of that. And so I think people actually do, trust those. So there is a lot of value there, but I always go back to what's the value of a new customer? If reviews can sway somebody from going from a different consulting firm to your consulting firm, and what does that look like on your bottom line? That's really the value of a review. And it can be different for everybody. And in fact, in restaurants, it's interesting. Restaurants get a lot of reviews, but restaurants aren't a great, like when you're talking about review solutions or things like that, their margins aren't very high. So they rely on reviews, but they don't really, they don't have to try super hard, because some people are gonna, leave a review whether it's good or bad. But the other side of that is it's sometimes hard for them, because the value of a customer is, depending on what they're serving. I just came back from New York, so I think those guys have to be making a ridiculous amount of money on their food margins. But here locally where I'm at, they're probably making a couple dollars a customer. So the value of that new customer isn't as great as maybe for you, where you're saying, hey, I'm going to make, $50,000 off this customer this year. I want that customer. And so to kind of illustrate that, one of the things that go ahead. Yeah, please go.
Yeah. I was going to partially make a comment and respond to what Shelley had mentioned. My sister is also a consultant, and she's not really looking that much for, quote, what we call the reviews, although they're reviews, but really the classy testimonials that can be put on various sites, including your website. But I think that sometimes people view those testimonials, and they're gorgeous, because usually those people are, they either have their assistant write it, their English is perfect, and they're really nice. But you don't want to ask those people to do anything twice. And so you could even ask them to, write your testimony, if you don't mind, on my Google link. And then I can just take that Google link, I can copy it, and I can just put it on my website, or put it on my other material that I'm sending to other clients. And you can end up doing both of them. But one of the things about those lovely testimonials is sometimes people look at it as like these inside jobs, like friends of friends that are using certain. And so there is a value to having that outside feel. One of the things I was going to ask you, Kevin, is that we are in the service industry. We are rated practically every single day. And but we don't pay much. You can't let it bother you,
No.
as something you do. But what we do have is our greatest advocates are repeat customers. They give us referrals, but typically, if we send them if they get the Google link, they usually just put 5, and then they don't put anything else. They don't say anything else. And that it's so common. but you really would like to encourage them in some kind of a way to say something, even if it is, I guess maybe we should say, it's okay, just say repeat customer 5.
Yep.
But they're very
Yeah.
quiet. They just give a
Yeah.
number.
What, if you don't mind asking, what is the business that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's heating and air conditioning.
Oh, yeah. So I try, I'm not going to be salesy, but I will tell you at Podium, like home services is one of our top 3 verticals. So that business is so competitive, right? Because people will make that decision, right? Especially because if they're waiting, it's right now in the middle of the hot summer and they've got to have someone come fix their AC or install a new AC unit. They want the best, right? They don't want somebody that's got terrible reviews or, hey, it took them 4 weeks to get here. So you're right on that. You do get the churn. You get a lot of people leaving those reviews, but then the hard part is, getting them to do that next level. I'll tell you a funny story. So my wife, like I mentioned, is a marketing director for a law firm, and it's next to impossible to get people to leave good reviews because what are they saying? My divorce went really well. This guy got me out of jail. This guy got my son off on a DUI. None of the things that they're doing are things that people want to say nice things about. But what, and this goes back to the original question too, is what do you do to get them to leave these reviews? How do you get them to do it? What's the, how, and one of the things you can do is you can coach them. And one of the things you can do is train your team to ask right when they're happy. So if you've got a heating and air conditioning person that's out there, in the field, they've just installed a new AC unit, they're talking to the customer and they're saying, hey, they're so happy. They just got their new, again, could be what, heating or AC, whatever that is. And you say, hey, you get your guys out on the field to say, hey, would you mind leaving us a Google review? It means so much to us. It helps us so much. And if you could say something nice, we'd love that. Just coaching them a little bit because customers don't realize what you're saying. They don't realize, they think 5 stars is it. But they don't realize the words that you're saying about them it will help you even more. And especially if you have repeat customers, you're right on with that. If you can get them to say something nice about you, then that will go to the next level for you as far as getting those out there. And you can just coach them. And that's one of the beauties of it. And that's something I would say is, as we're talking about that, how do you solicit reviews? How do you get them to come in? It's always best to ask right when when the customer's happiest. And that's why when you find a tool or a solution to get reviews, you want to find one that'll allow you to do that right from there. So for instance, and again, I'm not trying to pitch Podium because there's other products out there that do the same thing. But for our heating and air conditioning companies, we have these guys, they have their phones right there on the truck. They can sit there when they're done with the job and say, hey, customer, would you leave us a review? Cool. And they can send it right from their phone right there. You can also trigger that through your CRM or things like that, but there's lots of ways to be able to get those right then. I use Delta as my best example, and I think this goes back to that original question too. Delta always asks me a week after my flight how I liked my flight. And they ask me via email, which isn't really the most effective way to ask. So in a lot of cases, if you can find a way to text your customers that review invitation, it's going to be a great way to get it to them. But I almost never leave a review. But if you ask me about Delta, I'll tell you every time, I prefer Delta, and I'm sure everybody has their own preferences for airlines, but for whatever reason, my experience has always been amazing with Delta. But because they ask me 7 to 10 days after, I'm always just kind of like lukewarm about it at that point. And it's kind of gone to the back of my brain. And so when I see the email come in, I'm just like, I'll get to it. And then I never do. And so that I fall into that same category, even though I know the value of those reviews for them. And so that's a good way to do that. But yeah, you can coach your customers and coach your staff too. Coach your staff to say, hey, would you mind leaving me a review, and would you mind saying something nice about the customer? If you can find a way to incentivize your employees to get them. That's going back to that. The second question is, what's the value of a review? The value of a review is huge because it can sway more customers your way. And so when you talk about what's the value of a new customer, we see businesses all the time doing some sort of a gamification of reviews. Hey, whoever gets the most reviews this month gets a $20 gift card to their favorite restaurant or something like that. And when you talk about SEO, there's businesses out there that are paying $1,500, $2,000 a month for an SEO package from some business, and getting 20 to 30 new reviews would be the equivalent to that when they're searching locally for something, because Google places such a high value on SEO for reviews. that you can help them out that way. So I think, yeah, coaching them is a great way to do it. But yeah, I agree with you. It is hard sometimes because we're all in a big hurry now. So saying 5 nice words about someone is super hard, right? It doesn't seem like it should be, but it's just getting them to do it. It can be really difficult. So I think just, there's 2 ways to do that. Coach the customer, coach your team, and you'll see those improve for sure. Now, I answer? I feel like I covered all 3 questions. I want to make sure I did though. Did I miss anything that someone wanted me to answer? I feel like maybe I missed. I think you're muted there. I got it. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So I'm going to share a story, and again, it's going back to legal, but this will kind of cover this as well. So there's and if you don't. I like to listen to books. So going back to our discussion at the beginning of the call here, I love to listen to books more than I love to read them because I'm driving a lot or I'm doing other things a lot. I love to read, but it seems like if I want to get as many books in as I want, then I listen to them. A really good one to listen to is a book called 5-Star Attorney. Even if you don't even if you're not a law firm, and there's a really interesting story in there. This guy's a marketing director for legal in the country, and he wrote this book. His name's Andy Stickle, and he shares this story of he was working with this law firm in Chicago, and they were always in the top 3 search results for lawyers. But there are 2 other attorneys in the Chicago area who had, I think 150, 200 reviews, and he had like 40. And he kept saying, well, we're paying all this money for SEO. What is going on here? We can't convert these people to customers. And he did all this analysis. He did all of this, trying to figure out what they could do differently. And it boiled down to getting more reviews. And so he said, hey, for the next 2 months, let's just focus on reviews. We're not going to do anything else. And they started beating these other businesses with reviews. And all of a sudden their accounts or their bottom line started cranking, getting more customers, more clients. And it was essentially just because of reviews, because people are getting there and they're saying, okay, if I have to choose between a business that has 150 reviews, and again, every industry is different because, some businesses like furniture, for instance, you can go to a furniture store and they've got 2,000 reviews. So when I say numbers, don't think there's a number of reviews you have to get to. It's really essentially, what are your competitors doing? What do they look like when you do a search? You want to beat them. That's really the goal there, because it could be different for every business. But in his case, I think he was about 100 shy of the next closest of the 3 that were there. So they had, in that case, clearly they had done everything right SEO wise. Otherwise they wouldn't be ranking in the top 3, but they were losing every time because these businesses were choosing these other 2 law firms over them. And so in this case, they just focused on those reviews for the next 2 months. And again, now I think they were the top revenue generating agency a year later as a result of just getting Google reviews. And so that really does make a huge difference. We call it, there's the SEO value, but then there's also the social proof. What do other people say? And that's why, going back to a consulting firm, if you want the social proof that what you're doing is valuable to those customers and that what you're claiming you can do actually works for them, and that will sway people more often than really anything else you can do, because you've got 100 people saying that this is the best consulting firm in 100-mile radius. They're going to pick you. So I feel like does that answer that? I don't. Oh, go ahead. Oh, got your question. Got thumbs up. Make sure I'm going through here, Elizabeth. And if you see anything I don't, will you let me know, just so I don't miss anything here? And I love the interaction. This is perfect for how we talk about things. Any other questions, or did talking about that spur anything on, or any other second level questions about sort of what I've said?
Well, I have a question because what I hear over and over again, Google review, which, okay, great. I understand that they're the monster, or the big banana cheese, but depending upon how the customers are finding you or seeing you quite a bit, those other platforms, I think, are the ones that they're reading. So say, for example, we get a fair amount of people referred through Facebook, partially because of people who are in our networking group. And I'm seeing some faces that are in our networking group. And so what they do is that they don't leave Facebook. they click on to our Facebook business page and they see what people are saying on our Facebook business page. And so we've actually got our reviews set up so that they go 3 different places. And according to where the customer would choose to send them.
Yep.
To Google, they can send it to Facebook, or they can send it to our customer management system. And we've got that little, I don't know, that little chatty thing that has a star on it that's on our website. Some kind of, you know, is it bot or something?
Yeah.
I don't have the right language.
Chat, you did chat bot.
Yeah.
You got it right.
And they just touch it and then they see every time a review comes in. And people like looking at that because, you know, they get to open it up and they're right. It's, you know, since they're right on your website, you know, it's like they're looking in your underwear drawer before they decide they're going to make an appointment.
I love it. I love it. You know, and you just spelled it out. True. So, and people have a hard time with this because people think, oh, Facebook is, you know, blah, 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 this or that. But I will say this. So this is a good example, again, just anecdotally of what can happen. And so I have a friend who does basement remodels and he's a contractor. And recently, and I live in a neighborhood where we have a really great neighborhood Facebook page and there's a lot of people in it. And they'll go on there and they'll ask questions every day. Like you'll go in there and you can see questions on who's the best heating and air conditioning company locally, who's the best this. So recently, you know, someone jumped in there and said, hey, I need to finish my basement. Does anybody know any good contractors? And my wife jumped on there and said, yeah, I have a friend who does a really good job. He's highly recommended and does, you know, just does incredible work. So that person said, and then she said, just DM me if you want their info. And then 6 other people besides the person that asked the question DM'd my wife and asked for that information as a result. And he actually converted 4 out of 6 of those, and they never left Facebook. They went to his Facebook page, just like you're describing. They went to his Facebook page, they read it, they were able to see photos of the work he's done, they were able to see all that stuff right there, and then he went right there. The hard part is that's so important, right? Because that does happen. And again, depending on the value of a customer, for him, being able to get 4 jobs was super helpful because then that books him out for 3 to 4 months, right? So that in his case, that's really, really helpful. But for people that are trying to get people at a higher clip, you always have to think, well, number one, where do people go when they're searching for something? If just cold, right? If they're just searching cold, most likely they're going to go to Google, right? Secondly, they will, if they are digging a little deeper, they'll go to your Facebook page, they'll look at that. But yeah, I love that you said that because that really is a great place where a lot of business gets done that people just don't think about, and it does make a huge difference. So I love that you said that because people really do want that. The challenge with Facebook then though is that it goes back to, you know, if you want to draw it all the way back to what Elizabeth said at the beginning, is what is your marketing strategy? Because Facebook, for sure, you're going to get those, and if you're running Facebook ads too, then that's also helpful because people can stay right in Facebook. They can see the Facebook ad, they can click on your Facebook page, they can see what people are saying, and they can come right into you from Facebook. So it definitely helps. But in a lot of cases, people, if they're searching, you know, most people when they're looking for anything and they're looking for it cold, pull out their phone and they type in best, you know, ... near me. So best heating and air conditioning, best consulting firm, best, you know, insurance agency, best whatever it is near me. And then whoever shows up is who they click on and they go to. And I do love too that you're saying that about the reviews pushing to the website, because that does help. Does a couple of things too, right? If you can get, you know, and almost every review platform has some sort of a widget that will push your top reviews to, you know, an iframe or something on your website so that you can have those best reviews always showing up on your website. Just because, again, you're gonna be able to solidify that, close the deal when they're I love the statement, they're looking through your underwear drawer, right? They're looking at every little thing about you and they're going to go to your website, and that'll be the next thing there. And so that's a great, I love that example. In fact, we see one of the, you know, Facebook is really our second biggest place that we see leads coming in off of reviews and things like that. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Anyone else?
Kevin,
go ahead.
Can you talk about the different tools that are available
Yeah,
to get reviews?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Elizabeth, I don't know if you want me to, I'm actually going to show you just for fun. I'll show you what sounds like what you just described there is similar to the tool that we have here. So I'm just going to show you what a customer can experience. And again, this could be anybody here, right? But really, you'll have to forgive me because I'll have to sign in here. But oh, so there's all kinds of tools. One of the things I'll point out to you is that, email, and I would say, if you go read studies on email or text or things like that, you're going to want to find some sort of a solution that allows you to text, simply because you're going to, more people read it, and more people are ignoring email than ever before. And so you want to try and hit them where they're reading it. And just to kind of give you an idea here, as we're talking about tools and solutions, text currently has a 98% open rate, and 95% of those texts are opened within 3 minutes. So you really are getting, an opportunity there to get those reviews faster. And then again, going back to that whole coaching idea, if you can get your staff to be able to ask your customers, hey, would you leave us a review? And they say yes, and they're like, cool, I'm going to send it over now. You strike while the iron's hot in those cases. And so any solution you get, you should have a texting and an email capability, just so that you can meet the customers where you want to be. And it's so easy in those cases. And so most tools that you're going to find these days are going to have this solution right here, where you get here and you say, okay, I just finished up with your, installing your new air conditioning unit on the hottest day of the year. You're so happy, you're so grateful. I can tell you're so happy. And I was a great, service rep, and I installed that. And then I say, you know what? I can tell they're happy. I'm going to ask them to leave me a review right now. And they say, yeah, sure, I can do that. So you create a link for them that lets them do a couple of things there. And I think this goes back to, I think you're using a solution like this already, but you text it over to them, whether that's triggered from a CRM or triggered right from the sales rep or triggered from someone in the office, wherever you want. You just get those reviews to them as quick as possible. And then they can say, do you want to leave your review on Google? Nah, how about Facebook? No, how about, in this case, depending on the business, you can customize these, but you can really put them on really any site you want. And then when they hit yes, just make it really easy for them to leave that review, hit post, and done. And there's honestly so many solutions out there. Obviously, we obviously provide one, so that and that's why I know so much about reviews. But I love also what you said there too, is being able to have your chat bot, like you mentioned, something like that, where people can text you or ask you questions from that. You're seeing that those reviews help drive people to your website, drive people to be able to talk to you and do those things. And so any solution that you provide should be really simple for your team to use and really simple for the customer to be able to leave that review for you. And so in a lot of cases, and one of the really cool things that's changed recently is Face ID. You know how many people are signed up for Face ID? It used to be that one of the challenges that you'd run into with most reviews is that that's where people get stuck. You ask them to leave you a review, and then they say they got to go find their login for Google or find their login for Facebook and all that stuff. And nowadays, you can just, if you text it to them, they can click that review link, and their Face ID will log them into whatever account you want now. So it's been better than ever for getting reviews right from there. And then, along with that, if you can find other solutions. So, like I mentioned with our platform, we actually have just recently launched for retail businesses, and for HVAC businesses, card readers, field readers, things like that. So if they do need to pay. And another place that like retail is starting to see a huge uptick is our card readers will actually say to the clerk, hey, ask this person for a review, and they can just tap the card reader and they'll get it. And those businesses that are using card readers are seeing 3 times the amount of reviews. And so whatever solution you come up with, you just need to make it as easy for your team to ask and as easy as possible for the customer to leave you those reviews, because that's really where, at this point in the game, that's where the stagnation will happen. And I'm sure any of you who run a business can attest to this. Getting your team to do something different is often very difficult, to change the way they do things. And so if you can make it as easy as possible for for your team to be able to do the things you're asking, then that's the best solution for you. And so that's what I'd say in those cases is whenever you're looking at a solution, look at it and say, how would my team adapt this? How easy is this for my team to use? And if it's easy, then it's a great way to make the change. And then of course, in these cases, when you're anytime we're talking about this, I always encourage you to find a way to incentivize or to measure their progress on how they're doing on asking for reviews. Because if you can get, like I mentioned earlier, with gamifying it or providing a bonus for people, you know, finding some way to adopt them. It doesn't matter what tool you use at that point. If you can get them to find a way for them to feel, you know, a sense of ownership in that, they're most likely going to leave those reviews. And yeah, obviously I'm biased on ours, but there are, if you're only looking for a review solution, there's lots of them out there and they're all priced differently. What, do you mind if I ask, and I can't, names aren't showing up for me. It says Dr. Julius, right? That's what it said when you were talking earlier. Does that sound right? Is that correct?
Yeah, go ahead.
Or just doctor?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Doc J. Julius.
No,
is it Debbie or Deborah?
Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. What solution are you using and how does it work for you? You mentioned it comes out of your CRM.
It's with our customer management system. We have House Call Pro, and as soon as we push the finish button, a review is automatically sent out.
Love that.
And so that's the way that it's set up. But we do have a lot of people who have elected to use different systems, including a Podium, because Podium is one of the ones I think that can easily integrate into House Call Pro, and they actually prefer it.
Yeah,
so,
well,
but no, we're not. But we are using that.
Yeah, heating and air conditioning is huge with Podium. That's our home services, like I mentioned, is one of our biggest groups, and we do have, you know, the nice thing with a lot of, you know, if you find a good solution, a lot of times your providers, so Ingersoll Rand and Train, they actually pay for our home services companies that are heating and air conditioning companies to use Podium. All they have to do is say, hey, we'll co-op this for you. So if you can find a good solution, a lot of times you can usually find one of your vendors or your providers will usually co-op some of that for you, because they know if you get more reviews, you're going to sell more units, and they want to help you sell more units because they're going to buy them from them, right? So solutions like that are great. So yeah, that's another thing to look at is anytime, if you're in any industry you're in, if there's some sort of a service provider that you're using that will co-op some of it, that's another great way to pick a service for reviews, is to find one that's co-opable for the business you're in. And I've seen that whether it's in insurance. I used to be on the insurance side here at Podium for a while, and then moved over here to the partner team. But yeah, there's definitely lots of opportunities out there. Automotive is another one that's big for us. And so most manufacturers will actually pay for auto dealers to have Podium. So it's really, if you can find someone like that that will co-op it for you, that's also a great way to get this paid for in that case.
I have two questions. They're not yes or no questions,
Okay.
but there are things that we're confronted with. One of them is how do you deal with customers who want to negotiate prices and then hang a potential negative Google review over your head if you don't acquiesce to their price? Because we actually had a customer who, it was something about the amount of refrigerant, who says, well, $400. Well, I mean, come on, it's R22.
Yeah.
We didn't say it like that, but it's something that's tripled in price this summer. Look, I'll give you $250 and a good Google review. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard for me to write a good Google review. And actually, so how do you negotiate with customers who want to hold you hostage price-wise because of reviews?
Yeah, that is a great question. Yeah, it's unfortunately there's that tactic out there now, right? Especially with bad service, where people will get on Twitter or get on social media and say, hey, so-and-so is being, this or that. Two things I'll say. Number one, all of the data that I've read and all the case studies I've read say that if you handle any bad review correctly, then you're going to be able to win the next customer over. And so what I would say there is most of the people, and I believe this, and I'm dead serious, there are legitimate times where you can get on someone's web, Google My Business, and see their reviews, and you can see that they're a business, even if they have like, they have got 100 reviews and 10 of them are just horrible, and the other 90 are 5-star, but there's like, but you see in the 10 that are bad, there's a pattern, right? There's a pattern of like something that you can look at and say, I don't want to work with them for this reason, because maybe they're hard to work with, maybe they're too expensive, right? And here's two things I'd say to that. Number one, do you want to attract more customers like that? So I wouldn't negotiate with them on price because of a review. I wouldn't do that. What I would say is, if they do leave you a bad review, the best thing you can do is get on there and say, hey, so-and-so, I'm sorry you feel that way. What could we have done differently? And most of the time, if you do that, they won't answer you, because what their answer will be, you could have given it to me for cheaper. And if they do that, it lessens their beef. Secondly, but the bigger, more important thing is, it tells the customer that's looking at your reviews, this business cares, and they asked, and this person's being unreasonable. They didn't give a real, because a lot of times you get on there and it's like, I hate these guys. It's like, well, that doesn't help me know why I wouldn't work with them. It just seems like you're a bitter person, right? And a lot of the other thing that a lot of people do now too is, if someone leaves a really bad review, they can click on their name and they can go look at the other reviews they left. And in most cases, those people that are leaving you a bad review have left 15 other bad reviews somewhere else, and that's all they're doing. And then you can just say, that person doesn't matter. But ultimately, you can almost always win your customer, the new customer, over by just saying, what could we have done differently? I'm sorry you felt that way. Because I would say 8 out of 10 times, most of the people that leave you a bad review are just being unreasonable. I do think there are people that have legitimate beefs, and I have seen businesses out there that are obviously terrible to work with, and you can see a pattern in their reviews that says that. And the details of the review are specific to, I talked to this person and they did this, this, and this, or they never called me back, and then you call them and they never call you back. You're like, oh yeah, the reviews were right. Right, things like that. There are definitely legitimate things, but I would never ever negotiate price over that. I wouldn't do it, because for you, the review is not worth the $150. One review is not worth $150 in that case, if that makes sense. And even if they leave you a bad review, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, you bet. And I saw, sorry, everyone's name. Oh, go ahead. I'm trying to see here. Iris, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on what you mentioned, Kevin. I agree with all that. You know, if there's no bad review, I don't give that website or that source a lot of credit. But Deborah, here's my thought in encountering that. You know, I would kill them with kindness and kind of, I'll say, get on the same side of the table and kind of cut it off at the knees. And let's say it was over Freon, I would probably stand close to that person and say, dang, you know, the price of Freon is killing us too. Can I show you what it costs us? Or I don't know what it would be, you know, that would be a you thing, or your husband thing. You know what I mean? I'm not expecting your employees to do that, but, you know, kind of like, oh gosh, yeah, the price of living is high, and just kind of not even answer their question and not get into an actual front to front on that, because yeah, it's a lose. It's a triple lose. So I would kind of get around the table, almost put your arm around them verbally and say, oh, don't you know it? This Freon is killing us. And if you want to see my books, but kind of that vibe, like, you know, I could show you what has been happening to Freon in the last blah, 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 and then kind of not answer their question.
Yep. I love that, Iris.
That would be my kind of get around on the same side of the desk as they are, and kill them with kindness.
Yep. And that's another thing.
You know what, the other question, if you don't mind, I was,
yeah,
because this is something that's real, is that employees often, they don't want to ask for reviews, because it's almost as though we've sat here, which, I mean, it's about getting reviews, and we've talked about the importance of reviews, but we've also put a tremendous amount of responsibility on the people who are providing the service at the front line. And if they don't get, it's as though they don't really, the employer doesn't really want them to ask for a review. The employer wants them to get a 5-star review.
Yeah.
And if they don't get a 5-star review, then it can be extremely difficult at work.
Mhm.
Right.
Because the employers are putting so much emphasis on the volume of reviews and wanting 5-star reviews, that when you say like people get complacent, a lot of times it's not they're complacent. They don't want to ask, even if they are doing really well and have good relationships with the customers, because they don't want the flack that they get if it's a 4-star or
Yeah.
you know, even if it's out of their control. They don't want to be blamed or say, you get a 4-star review because the equipment is late. Well, if you're working in the service industry, we have equipment shortages nationwide. But
Yep.
you're going to get, but they're going to say that, you know, Tommy didn't put my faucet in on time. And you're going to, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
And the fear would go back to, honestly, in that case, I think I always joke around is like, just make sure that in that case they understand that you're doing the carrot, not the stick. You're making sure that you're helping them, you're rewarding them for the good things, but that you understand, just like for you, where there are things out of their control. And so you don't be afraid of things that you can't control, because you can't control shortage, delays. One of the ones that, as you guys are talking, that I've heard a lot from home services recently is the cost of lumber. People are so frustrated about the cost of lumber right now, and it's not anybody's fault. It's somebody's fault, but it's not the contractor's fault, right? And so asking for those reviews, just helping them to feel like, hey, this is going to help us as a business to get better customers. So, I guess I would just go back to, whatever the solution is to get them to ask, or just put it in a way that to say, hey, look, we're not going to punish you if you get this. And then another way that some people are addressing that, honestly, is that they're doing NPS surveys after the fact, where they say, hey, because the reviews for the business, and again, the value there is so high on the SEO side and the social proof side that you want them. The back end of that, if you are worried about an employee that may be struggling or not giving good service, then people are doing surveys instead. They'll say, hey, what was your experience like today? And then they can ask, okay, well, what happened? But I'd say if your employees are afraid, that's also, honestly, like, I've found that a lot. It's a great way to, I always tell people that, the quote that I've read is, that which is measured is improved. And so if they're struggling and you all of a sudden see 10 bad reviews from this one worker, there's probably something that you need to address with that worker, because there's maybe something in their, their demeanor or the way they're doing things. So it does help you improve as a business too. So that would be my answer to that. Is just, I wouldn't be afraid of it, because internally you can control that. You can go to your employees and say, I'm not going to fire you if you get a bad review, but we do need to know how we're doing. And then it looks like you have your hand up there. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So Podium specific question. I'm assuming since they're reviewing on Podium, and that's where we sent them the link from, that we have the control of whether or not it actually gets posted to the platform or not. But
no, it does go directly to the pages. That practice, just good question, is called gating. And most review, if you are working with a review, like a review tool that allows you to gate, be careful, because if you start to get a high volume of reviews and none of them are bad, and you're asking, for other questions before you send it, I've seen Google wipe them out. Google's biggest fear with that is that if people rig the system, then people don't trust Google anymore, and then people stop using Google. And so definitely be careful with that. But like I said, I'm dead serious. A bad review here and there really won't hurt you, especially because if you go read some bad reviews, most of the time it's somebody who's just had a bad day or a bad experience. And bad experiences happen, right? But you can, they will go straight to whatever platform you're pushing them onto, for sure. Yeah, Google won't let us do that. But you know, if that's important to you, there are tools that do it. I'll tell you that. I mean, you can do it with Podium. Honestly, you can ask a question and say, hey, you know, like I mentioned, you can ask a question that's like, hey, what was your experience like? And they say it was a 2 out of a 10 because my service rep wasn't wearing pants or something, you know, some weird thing. And then you're like, okay, well, I don't want you leaving me a review. Then you could ask them those questions beforehand, right from there. And so, but yeah.
If you do use Podium, do the people actually help you where if you work in a more sensitive area, like we talked about legal or other things, where you don't want to open up your drawer, but in the same light, if it's your business and you know that for your customer, confidentiality is important, will someone actually work with you so that you come up with the kind of questions that answer the concerns of what your potential customers are? Because I think that's why they're reading it, not if you're good, just good, but they're trying to figure out if you're conscientious or if it's legal or something. Are you confidential? Are you patient? Are you very thorough or detailed?
Yeah. So everything at Podium is verticalized. So sales is verticalized, customer service is verticalized, customer success is verticalized. So when you talk to somebody, you know, if you talk to someone like a sales rep here, you're going to talk to someone who's in home services. If you talk to a customer success rep, who essentially, to answer your question, what we do typically is we train customers on how to use Podium, the nuts and bolts, and then we do what we call customer success or a strategy call, where we do exactly that. Because most of the things that you can do from the Podium aspect are you can templatize a lot of your communication. So you're able to, you can create templates to say, I want to ask this question, I want to ask this question, so that your employees don't have to rethink the wheel every time they do something. They can just send this question or send that question, or even if your CRM is doing that, you could trigger it to send this question or ask that question as time goes on. So absolutely, we train people to be super successful. And then just to make sure I'm covering all the bases, we are, in the cases of some of these other businesses, HIPAA compliant for healthcare, and then, you know, in the financial services field, we do have, and then also, you know, insurance is a little bit of that as well, but we do have secure messaging as well, so that if they do need to have like transfer any data that's secure, we can do that as well. So yeah, absolutely, we make sure beyond just, hey, here's a tool, go use it, we definitely build out a strategy with our customers to make sure that it happens, you know, that way. And you know, depending on the business, a lot of times we'll do a call with like 1 or 2 people who implement it, and then we'll do a call with the whole team to say, okay, here's how you ask for a review, here's when to ask, we do all that training, stuff like that. So absolutely, yeah, we take care of, we want to make sure that it's specific to the industry, because you do want to be sensitive about the right time to ask, and then also, you know, making sure that they, you know, that they know that, because in some cases, like I mentioned earlier with legal, like it's really hard because you know, you don't want people to, you know, people are scared to say things that, you know, illegal or other things like that. It's difficult for them to want, or healthcare is also difficult. You know, hey, you know, they cleared up my, you know, it's really sensitive medical issue.
Hey, Kevin, we're
Yeah, go ahead.
reaching almost 11 o'clock. So do you mind to stop sharing your screen for a second? That way we can wrap up, and if there are more questions, we can handle that offline.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. All right, so there were a lot of really great questions today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to answer those and to give us a lot more information about how online reviews work and just kind of why they're so vital to your business these days. If anybody is interested in a demo of Podium, feel free to reach out to me after this, and we can set something up with Kevin for you guys to learn more about that. As I mentioned, we have 2 more. Well, I've got more than that, but I've got 2 upcoming webinars. The next one is going to be on August 24th. and Dan Bewley is going to be talking about creating the perfect video. And we've got Iris, who's on the call today. She is going to be talking about using LinkedIn to grow your business. Both of those are really important aspects for customer engagement these days. And I'm really excited to hear both of those experts talk about how to use those as different tactics as part of your marketing strategy. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, I'm really interested in webinar topic suggestions. So what is of interest to you? So if you want to drop into the chat a topic that you're interested in learning more about, or if you want to shoot me an email later, that would be great. And really, I just truly want to thank you for being here today. This has been a great experience, and I know that I really welcome your feedback as well. So what do you want to know more of? What can we do better in these webinar series? Since this is the inaugural event, I know that we can only get better from here. So thank you all so much for your time today and being here. I'm just really excited that being able to launch this. So any other questions or anything you want to cover before we end today? All right, well, thank you all so much, and I look forward to seeing you next month at our next webinar. Bye.
Nice job, y'all. Thanks.
Thank you.